Welcome, everyone, to Unscripted and Unstoppable, the podcast for women over 50 who are ready to embrace change, rediscover themselves, and step boldly into their next chapter. I'm Lorraine Quick, your host, and I believe this stage of life is not about slowing down, it's about becoming more you than ever before. And today we're diving into a conversation about nurturing your spirit, finding inner peace, breaking free of those limiting beliefs that you hold, and discovering a sense of purpose that feels truly aligned with who you are. And I couldn't think of a better guest to guide us today than Debi Barr, a spiritual coach, artist, and author who brings what she calls spirituality with attitude to everything she does. If you ever feel lost, stuck, or simply unsure about what's next, this episode is for you. Debi has a unique way of making spirituality accessible, empowering, and even a little bit rebellious, which I love. And it is exactly the way we need to be and feel in our midlife and beyond. So, dear friends, grab a cup of tea or maybe a glass of wine if that's your preference. Settle in and let's explore how to cultivate more peace, more joy, and more confidence in this stage of life. Debi, welcome to Unscripted and Unstoppable. I am so excited to have you here today for this conversation.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to talk to you today. It's going to be such fun.
I can't wait to dig in. In fact, let's get started. I want to start by just asking, how did you come to do this work? And what does that term spirituality with attitude mean to you, Debi?
Okay. I started, I suppose I've always been a spiritual person, but I think for me, being raised in a very strict religious household as a child, it gave me a structure, right? But it gave me a sense of limitation. And I always thought there was bound to be more. I always felt kind of the very strict religious beliefs that my parents brought me up with, that it kind of limited you from being really spiritual or who you really were. And I felt there was a disconnect.
Mhm.
However, I didn't really press it much as a child. You do what you're told, you grow up, you do the thing. But I lost my father when I was 14 years old. And that was a real culture shock. It was a moment when the rug was pulled out from underneath me, and I questioned everything. And as a teenager, you're still trying to work out who you are, right?
Mhm.
So I'm kind of, I'm trying to find myself. I'm trying not to upset my mom. I'm going through life, get married, have kids, get a job, do the thing, all life. And then I was made redundant unexpectedly. And it was at that point that I questioned, why am I here? What am I doing? What is actually happening with life? And it was that moment back in 2008 that
Mhm.
actually tipped me into this work. It didn't happen straight away, but it did encourage me to realize that I wasn't happy. I was running through life on autopilot. I was taking antidepressants just to function. I was looking for the answers at the bottom of a bottle of wine. I
Mhm.
was just all the things. And I was trying to function, being, looking after my mum who was getting on in years. I was looking after my kids, running a full-time job. And I had given myself labels of all these different things and had forgotten who I was. So my redundancy in 2008 was probably the big catalyst. And what it did was it made me go on a journey of self-discovery to remember who I was. And I asked myself, when did I stop painting? When did I stop writing? When did I stop doing the things that I like to do? And I was always a little bit edgy. I was always a little bit different. When I was growing up as a kid, I liked rock music. My dad was like, "That's devil's music." And I would dress in black, and I would just be a little bit more rebellious. So the spirituality with attitude side of my business now, it means rejecting the idea that spirituality has to be soft and passive and full of love and light and be fluffy bunnies and rainbows, because real life's not like that. Yeah. It's about standing in your power, questioning everything, embracing both the light and the dark, and doing that deep work without sugarcoating it. So, in a nutshell, that's what spirituality with attitude's about. And I got into it as a result of some life quakes, if we want to call them that way, curveballs that come your way.
That's when I listen to you talk, what you're really telling me is, and I believe this a lot about life, and I think as I've gotten older, I'm able to challenge these belief systems, right? We're taught a certain kind of thing about how things should work and how things should be. And then when we try to fit in that mold, we find it frustrating because it doesn't always work for us. And we think there's something wrong with us. And so we keep trying to fix ourselves to fit the puzzle piece, so to speak. But when the reality is, we just need a different puzzle. We just need a different perspective that allows us to slide into what feels right and good for us with no judgment around, well, this isn't quite what they told me it was supposed to be like. I must be wrong. We have to drop that. And I do think that it gets easier to do that as we get older because we have a different perspective on
Mm.
life. So I like this conversation and this whole idea of spirituality with an attitude. It gives me permission to embrace
Yeah.
spirituality the way it works for me.
Exactly. It's exactly that, because I think in today's society there are far too many rules. We look out of ourselves constantly for external validation. We
Mhm.
have become conditioned to not trust ourselves. We have got conditioned to seek that approval from everyone else, to look outside of ourselves for the answers. And it doesn't it doesn't lead us anywhere good. It just causes comparisonitis. It causes us deep dissatisfaction and frustration usually. And then we do think, like you say, there must be something wrong with me, because why doesn't this not work?
Exactly. So if you think about a woman who, I mean, for me, I always hear this spirituality means you have an inner peace, there's calmness in your life,
Mm.
you never get angry, you never get upset, you're never frustrated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So how do I redefine that for myself? What work do I need to do to make that happen for me?
I think one of the things I just want to pick up on is that peace isn't just about stillness.
Mhm.
It's not just about life being wonderful all the time, because it's certainly not. The peace that people in spiritual circles talk about is the ability to hold your center no matter what's happening around you. And yes, women in particular, particularly in midlife and beyond, feel this pressure. Yeah, and we feel this pressure to, oh, you should have it sorted out by now. You should know how to hold this center. You should know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
But the work that needs to be done is for you to remember who you are. So the work that needs to be done is that moment of taking the time to really tune in and to look beyond the label, to look beyond the roles you have picked up in life, to start to question, who am I? So if I was to ask you, who are you? Quite often people will say, oh, well, I'm Jane, and I'm a mom, and I work at such and such, and I do the thing. And they give me a list of all their roles and all their responsibilities. And I'm like, I didn't ask you what you do or who you're related to or who you're married to. I asked you who you are. And a lot of people can't answer that. So that's where it starts, is to peel that back, to peel back the layers of each role and each responsibility, and keep peeling it back until you just get to the quintessential truth of who you are as a person. And
Hmm.
that's where we start then. That's where we find what lights you up, what makes your heart happy. And it's okay if it looks different than everybody else, because it's supposed to.
For me, I think I go through this when I ask that question, I get myself stuck in some kind of existential fog about who am
Mm.
I, right? And what I've
Yeah.
learned is rather I ask, who do I want to be?
Mm.
In this
That's
moment,
so, so important.
who
Yeah.
do I want to be? Because when I get
Mm.
that, it's like, okay, well, I want to be a person who, in this crazy situation, whatever it is I'm facing, I want to be a person who responds with kindness. I want to be a
Yeah.
person who responds with compassion.
Mm.
and with a thoughtful perspective. When I say
Mhm.
that to myself in my head, then that shifts everything. It does. It shifts my energy completely
Absolutely.
to how I can now react to the situation in front of me, whatever that might be, right? That the craziness, the chaos
Exactly.
of the world. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting. So,
exactly. And it's it's that moment of being able to pause when all the life craziness is coming at you, and to pause and to take a step back off the front line of your mind, to take a step back off the instant need to immediately react, to breathe, to pause, and then to respond. And it's that's the piece, and that's the little that's the thing that with, for example, a daily practice of meditation, or a practice of journaling, or a practice of some form of body work or breath work, or something that you do through the day, or creativity, whatever it may be,
that helps.
that that gives you the ability to be mindful of what's going on in your mind, and to be mindful of how you're about to perhaps engage, so that you can have that moment of saying, hold on, who am I? Who do I want to be here? How do I want to show up?
It's that it creates a discipline of pausing
Yeah,
that you can then insert into a time of crisis or chaos. Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think that's good to be to live a reflective life at some in
Yeah.
some form or another.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when you think about the women you work with, and especially women in their 50s or older, 50s, 60s, 70s, what are some of the biggest spiritual blocks that you see women struggling with in the work you do?
Yeah. I see people pleasing, over responsibility,
Hmm.
fear of failure, fear of being really seen as to who they are because they've played small for so long. They tell themselves stories of, oh, well, it's too late now, or it'll be too, it's too much. It's too much. I'll be too much for people if I really express who I am. So I might upset the apple cart. I might annoy the people around me. What will people think? Yeah. And it's these stories then that keep people, women in particular, women are so used, I think, to being the caregivers, of being the glue that holds their family together, that when they really want to embrace who they truly are, and they want to break out of that cocoon that they've put themselves in over the years, they're very, very scared that people won't love them anymore, that they'll cause a rejection or they'll cause pain. So often they'll just play small.
It's like we've almost navigated our whole life trying to please everyone else and meet everyone else's expectations. So now
Mhm.
when we are thinking about stepping forward and showing ourselves in our full glory, we are really scared we'll be rejected.
It's exactly it, because rejection is, it's a primal, it's a primal fear. Because back in tribal days, if you were rejected from your tribe, that meant certain death. You had no way of looking being looked after. So it's an intrinsic, innate part of being human, is the need to belong. So if you have curated your entire life as a version of you who isn't really true, isn't really who you truly are, and then all of a sudden you want to break out of that and go, actually, here I am, that can completely, like, people around you might be like, what's happening? Are you having some sort of crisis? Are you having a mental breakdown? And then, the women are like, no, I have actually just, I am free, I have found out who I am. But
Hmm.
so it takes bravery, it takes courage to be able to actually go for it. And that's where you need support. That's where you need, a circle of women to hold you and to support you in that.
So one thing then you can do to help yourself with this is gather around you a group of friends who understand what you're trying to do and who will
Exactly.
support and affirm you and love you and encourage you, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're looking for a non-judgmental, supportive space that will hold you in all, we joke in the circle that I run, we often say, please shine your light brightly so the other weirdos can find you. And it's like, we're here. We're here. You don't need to look anywhere else. And you're unique, beautiful, gorgeous self will be accepted no matter what. So
I,
you can be unapologetically yourself and there's no judgment and
I,
you're held,
I love
you're
that.
seen.
I love
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
that's important.
And so for women who look to their friends and say, "Oh no, they wouldn't be able to do this for me," you're recommending finding a spiritual group like one of the ones that you run, that would do that for you until you
Yeah,
until you
because
get to a place.
sometimes,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, sometimes our closest friends and family don't get it. So sometimes they don't get it because maybe your closest friends have been used to you being a certain type of person in the relationship. And maybe you've decided you no longer want to be that doormat or that people pleaser or that person who always gives, and maybe you're finding yourself. So sometimes that can challenge a friendship. So sometimes your friends, and this is not for all friends, this is a sweeping generalization, but what I'm saying is sometimes the people closest to us are the worst people to hold that space for us as we try to grow because they are used to the old version of us. So
Hmm.
quite often it can be having a community, a separate community. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a spiritual community. So people will find this, perhaps maybe they take up a new hobby and it allows them a new circle of friends who support that hobby and support that version of themselves. Might be they take up, art or sewing or gardening or whatever it is, walking, whatever hobby it is that they want to do. And they find a supportive tribe of people. And it's that you're looking for. It's looking for that support and that care as you grow into the next version of yourself.
And so it seems like to me then what conclusion I can draw is that if I do this, if I step forward into my full self and begin sharing and living my life accordingly, I may find that I don't fit anymore in the social circles that I used to run in, and that I will need the courage to step up my game and reach out to new people and new experiences that, of course, is going to scare me, right? But at the same time,
Absolutely, yeah.
what would you say to me? So what would you say to me if I was your client? I'm afraid. I'm afraid to do that. I like my friends. I don't want to lose my friends. I wanted our relationship to be better. I wasn't
Yeah.
thinking
So
of a
this
new.
is the thing. This is the thing I often say to people is that whenever you have the bravery to be completely yourself, whenever you are brave enough to shine your light and
Mhm.
your essence, it gives other people permission to do the same. So quite often your friends then might be some of their friends might be like, Lorraine has done this and I'm so excited because now it means she's been brave enough to do it and I want to do it too. Can I come too? Can I come to that group with you? Because actually I've been just waiting for someone else to be brave enough to do it first. So it might be that you need to be you might need to be the one with the big girl pants and to do it first so that your friends, because you've been friends for a reason, right? It's not that, yes, there will be some friendships that are maybe a little questionable, that maybe there's an imbalance, and we all have those, right?
Mhm.
There may be some relationships, family relationships that are not ideal, right? But generally speaking, just because you step up into this world and into this work, it doesn't mean that you lose everybody. It just means that you keep the people who truly matter, who truly love you and respect you, and the ones who maybe don't start to naturally drift away.
Okay.
It's not like an overnight bang, right? I'm a different person. I'm going to lose everybody overnight. It's a gradual evolution.
Okay. And it also is an act of leadership then, right?
Yeah,
Because of what I'm
yeah,
doing is through my own example, I'm role modeling a way for women, my friends, for my family, for anyone to live their life to the fullest. I'm by my example encouraging them to do that. And of course, I should also be accepting them to do that, right? I don't want to pigeonhole them any more than I want them to pigeonhole me. So
exactly.
it actually is a positive in all directions, with the shedding of maybe some friends, some family members who just don't quite get it, who aren't ready for it, but that doesn't mean they won't be in the future.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like energetic ripples. It's you have started something that ripples from you. And it will either allow people to ripple back and come into your life, or it will push them away. And it's just what it is. But that act of leadership is also self leadership. You're leading yourself through this next evolution of life, because here's the thing, no one else is going to do it for you.
Darn. Yeah.
There's no,
No one,
fortunately,
one of my friends, when we hike, she's like, no one's going to walk down that mountain with me, for you. You're going to have to get up and make that happen. But once we're on the trail, you got to go up and you got to come down. No one does it for you,
right?
unfortunately, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I know you're an artist, and so how
Mm.
does creativity play a role in spiritual growth and in spiritual healing? Can you speak a little bit to that?
For, yeah, sure. For me as an artist, so I would be a visual artist. I would paint. And for me, it's a way to channel emotion, to channel energy. And it's not always a conscious thing. Sometimes I just will find myself maybe just doodling or, using color just to relax.
Mhm.
For me, art is almost my headspace where I can go to not think, and where I can just let the paint move. And what I have discovered with it is that the more I make it an all body movement, so that it's not just sitting painting, that it's actually letting the best paintings come whenever I'm more expressive and I move my body, because it becomes nearly like a conversation with your soul. Yeah. Um, and personally, for me, a lot of my work would explore different themes like resilience or sovereignty or transformation. I like a little bit of magic. I like a little bit of, I love nature scenes and the play with light and dark and reflections. And I get quite sort of ethereal and magical in my mind. It doesn't always translate. Sometimes it causes more frustration than enough, but that's just life. But I think creativity, whether it's painting, whether it's writing, whether it's dance, whether it's, we are naturally creative beings as humans. That's our, we are made of creative life force energy. That is our fundamental makeup. Every single person is creative every day. It becomes this portal to healing if you allow it to be there, because it allows you to express often what words can't.
Hmm. So creativity is a portal of healing. I
Yeah.
like that term. And for me, I write poetry and I
Yeah.
share some of what I write. But to me, it does exactly what you just said. It makes me
Oh,
feel whole. I am happiest when I'm being creative. And when I think about the poetry that I write, it also is allowing me to express my emotional state.
yeah.
Uh, the joy, the love, the sadness, the frustration, the anger, whatever
Mm,
it is that I am feeling that allows me to get that outside of me, but at the
yeah.
same time, be very reflective about who I am and how I want to express myself. Yeah. So it fits and works really well for me as well. I should try dancing or painting sometime and just see what I come up with, just for fun, I think. But
Yeah. Yeah. Try it for something different, because I think the different forms of creativity can bring out different aspects. And I love to write as well. So like I will happily write, and there will be sometimes I will lose myself in the writing, and I will love that. And then there'll be other times I can't get the words out, so I turn to the paintbrush. If I'm really choked with emotion and I can't, if I need to move something, I'll give you an example. Um, just a few months ago, I made a decision to step down from my role as voluntary emergency ambulance crew with St John Ambulance, Northern Ireland, and I had been with them for 7 years, highly trained medic response. Loved the voluntary work. It grounded me. It gave me a different aspect to helping people.
Mhm.
But the demands on my time and the responsibilities of it were becoming so huge that I couldn't juggle everything. I couldn't run a full-time business and give as much of myself as I knew I really wanted to the role. So I made a very difficult decision to step back. And it was such a big chunk of my identity that got pulled away, that I was like, who am I? Who am I without the green uniform? Who am I without the blue lights? Who am I without the ambulance? Who am I? And I took it to the art studio and I created this abstract piece that, to look at it, it probably doesn't look like anything for anyone else. But to me, it symbolizes everything I was feeling. And I called it My Heart Will Always Wear Green. And it was this abstract piece that had thick bits in it. There was like little ECG lines running through it. There was a heart in the middle of it, and it just spoke to everything. And as I looked at it, as I was painting it, I was crying. And then it just lifted it lifted the weight of the emotion off me, and I was able then to have a conversation like this where I was talking about being a St. John member without choking up. So for me, creativity is very healing and it allows you to express those emotions.
Hmm. That that is I think doing that then, as much as the meditation, as much as the journaling, all of those things would be really valuable. But creativity is another element that you can add into your life, some creative act that would allow you to, again, once again, access who you are and
Yeah.
express yourself in a way that's meaningful to you about
Mm-hmm.
your identity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's another tool in your toolbox. There's
Okay.
no one right or wrong way. And I think that's as we said at the top of our conversation, for we're often conditioned to believe we have to do things a certain way. And for me, true spirituality is about stepping into the flow of what's right for you at this moment and leaning into the fact that, we don't always have all the answers outside of ourselves, but when we take time to come within, whether that's through meditation, whether it's through writing poetry, whether it's through painting, whether it's through simply breathing and looking up at the sky,
Hmm.
we remember our place, we remember who we are, and it gives us that moment of clarity that we desperately need sometimes in the chaos of modern life.
So let's say I'm doing the journaling, I do the meditation, I am a creative person, and I think I do a lot of those things. But now here I am faced with some kind of stressful moment, some kind of I wouldn't even go so far as to say crisis, just a lot of stress going on around me. How do what can I do in that moment to bring myself back? Because it's really easy to get kind of sucked right into the drama of what's going on around you, and then you've lost it. So,
Yeah.
what tools do you have in your little toolbox as you work with clients that help them in the moment connect to themselves and their
In the
spirituality?
moment, in the moment, and this goes, it's the most simple thing. You've been doing it all your life. Can you guess?
Breathe.
Yeah, right. That's the most simple thing. You came out the womb and you breathed. You know how to do this. It's a natural response. Okay. The secret to self regulation with the breath is you need to become consciously aware of it. And this is where then your previous practices, your previous discipline of noticing your breath, of noticing your thoughts, of doing the meditation, of doing the work, right? This is where then it becomes natural for you to immediately go, oh, I notice that I'm breathing up here and I'm stressed and my shoulders have come up to my ears and I feel tight. I know that I need to go.
Okay. And
That one simple breath is often enough to diffuse a potentially explosive situation simply because you pause. It is the practice of the pause. But your breath is the most powerful tool at your disposal and it costs no money. It's yours. You've been
yay.
doing it since you came out of the womb. And consciously being aware of your breath and saying, okay. And a little tip, box breathing sometimes can cause more stress than enough. This breathing in for four, holding for four, out, breathing
Okay.
out for four, holding for four. That causes me a stress response. So it doesn't help me. What I have found is like a 3-3-6 breath where I breathe in just for three and hold for three and then breathe out for six. So that I am breathing out for slightly longer than I breathe in, for twice as long as I breathe in. If you extend your breath out longer, it naturally regulates.
Hmm.
It naturally regulates. And it's a very quick technique that you can do anywhere.
So breathe in on the count of three and then breathe out on the count of six. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And if you want, you can hold at the top of the breath. If you breathe in for 3, you can hold just for 1, 2, 3, and then
Breathe out for 6. Okay. Good.
that act of really emptying your lungs also energetically empties out the old energy that you don't want and allows it to get out so that you can then bring in fresh energy. And
Okay.
it gives you that moment to pause.
So then a lot of us, myself included, we've all had moments in our lives where things have not gone well. And we carry around with us the grief, the regrets, the sense of loss, the pain. I think about things like my husband passed away over 15 years ago, but I still have that in me.
Of course.
I had to close a business and go bankrupt at one point in my life. I still have that in me. And so those things, how do we overcome those things as we practice and develop our spirituality? Or can we?
Oh, we most certainly can, but I think it just depends on how you view the things that happen in life. And this then gets into your energetic awareness and your level of consciousness, because quite often we operate on a, life happens to me
Right.
level of consciousness, and it becomes like why does this happen to me? Why did this is always happening to me? And it becomes a bit heavy and becomes a bit like a victim mentality. And generally speaking, when we step into personal development work, one of the first things we do is move from that to me consciousness into taking responsibility and going, okay, I now know that no one's going to hike the path for me. Nobody's going to come and rescue me. I've got to do it myself, right?
Mhm.
And we step into this life will happen because of me, this by me consciousness that I will make things happen. And there are levels above that. I'll pause there for a moment, because when we step into that awareness of the fact that, okay, I can take responsibility here. I can't control what happened to me. So I can't control that I lost, in your instance, you can't control that your husband passed.
Right.
Yeah. But the past will only define you if you let it. It's about the story you tell yourself. It's about the story that you carry with you. Yeah. And for me, it was, this for a long time I was the girl who lost her dad at 14.
Mhm.
And it was like, well, why'd that happen to me? And when I reframed it and I was like, what did that teach me? What did that help me understand? What did that open up for me? What did that allow me to cultivate? And when I flipped the switch from why did it happen to me to what is this trying to teach me, or what did this teach me? What did this experience teach me? It taught me that, you know, I had been very loved by my father and I missed him terribly. So it was natural to grieve. It taught me about loss. It taught me that life was precious and to be enjoyed. It taught me that, you know, I was self sufficient and could stand on my own 2 feet and that I didn't need that. It also taught me that I was much freer without him because he was not controlling my day-to-day activities as a 14-year-old anymore. It taught me so many different things, right? As an example. And if it's something more, sometimes things happen to people where, there's forgiveness required. And people struggle and they're like, I don't want to. I'm not down for this. But the thing about it is, forgiveness doesn't mean approval. It doesn't mean you're ticking off and saying it's fine. It means freeing yourself from carrying the weight of what happened, and it allows you to release it. So there's so many different tools we can use to release old stuff. There's so many different things, but it starts with a reframe.
Okay.
It starts with a reframe of, okay, I'm going to move out of victim consciousness and I'm going to step into the next level of understanding and taking responsibility and going, okay, what's this cultivating for me? What's this opening up for me? What is this teaching me? Instead of why did this happen to me?
For me, that's the question to ask is how is this expanding my life? Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, again, it's about doing the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's like I think I have done a lot of that with the death of my husband, for example, and the loss of a business, but they still creep up. And
Mm.
interestingly enough, most of it, even years later, there is an element of guilt. like I didn't do enough.
Yeah.
I should have done something different. And so
Mhm.
that's where self-forgiveness, I think, jumps in as well. That,
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
leave the judgment behind, Lorene. Let's forgive yourself for whatever wrongs you think you committed. And again, what and how has my life expanded based on this experience, and what can I do now to continue to expand? I truly believe life is about expansion, that we are born here to expand and to grow, and we're born here to help others do the same. So that really resonates with me. It really helps me to be at peace with whatever happened and continue forward with, this is what I've learned from this. This is how I'm different. This is how I'm better. And let's move on, because things happen, right? We don't, again, like you
This
said, we
is it.
don't have control over everything. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. We literally have control over only how we respond. That's it. We don't have control over what's going to come our way.
We don't. And so we just need to stay focused on what we can control and who we want to be in those moments, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I do meet a lot of women who say, I don't know what I want. I don't know who I want to be. I just
Mm.
don't know. And I've never known. So how do you, or what would you recommend for those women to figure that out, to answer that question in their lives?
That's a big one. I literally wrote a post about that this morning on my social media. Because I was running an event last night, and a lady on the event said to me, I've been people pleasing for so long, I don't even know who I am anymore.
Mhm.
And I don't even know what I want. And I thought, oh, it's very common. Yeah. And I hear that a lot. I hear people say, I don't know. I'd say to them, what do you want to do? And they're like, don't know. So what I tend to say to them at that point is, how would you like to feel today? Right now in this moment, what emotion would bring you most peace, most joy? What how would you like to feel? And we can open the conversation there, because when we start to think of those big questions like, who am I? Like you said earlier, it can throw you down an existential rabbit hole that you maybe aren't ready for. Yeah. And when we bring it back just into the moment, it's like, right, okay, just for the rest of today, how would you like to feel? And they might say, well, I just want, I just want to feel peace. So my next question would then be, okay, so what's causing you feelings where you're not peaceful? What's causing you the chaos? And then maybe then start talking about something. And what we start to do, if they don't know what it is they want, I start to focus on the things they don't want. And we pick out the things they don't want, and then it naturally leaves what they want and who they are underneath. And as they gradually start to stop telling the old stories and peel back the layers of all the things, then we start to get to the thing where they'll maybe turn around at some point and go, do you know, when I was a little girl, I loved horses. Or when I was a little girl, I loved to jump in puddles. When I was a little girl, I loved to paint. Or I loved to help my mum cook in the kitchen. Or I loved, and they start to remember the things they loved. And
Hmm.
at that point, then we can go, okay, so when was the last time you did that? And we start to bring in the little bits of what they what they want, what they are. And that helps them then really really get back in. So for me, it is very much about checking in, even just a simple check in, how do I feel today and how do I want to feel today? How do I want to show up? Taking a moment to breathe and just having a moment, even one little sacred moment in the day that's just for you, where you can just check in with you and step back from all the noise.
So it's really just start small, but focus on
Mhm.
what makes you, one little thing today that would make you happy or make you feel at peace
Yeah,
or bring you
yeah,
joy. And trust that escalates, or it's like an avalanche. It starts with one small little snowflake, and the next thing you know, the whole mountain is rolling down the hill, right? In terms
yeah.
of life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because I think sometimes people go, "Do you know, I just want to be free. I just want to feel free." Right? That's a big one I hear all the time. I just want to be feeling free. I feel constrained, right? And I go, okay. What's one thing you can do today to give you a sense of freedom? And they're like, well, I don't know because I have to go to work and I have to make my husband's dinner and I have to feed the kids and I have to do this. And I'm like, okay, I didn't ask you all the things that were causing you lack of freedom. I asked you, what's one thing you can do that will give you freedom? And they're like, I suppose I could just like, I could go outside and just like look up at the big sky and see how big it is and how small I am. And that might make me feel free. And I'm like, okay, do that. Do
Uh-huh.
that.
It's
Yeah.
little small things.
Or yeah, it's a little tiny thing. Or, maybe I always have coffee at 11. Well, what about I have something different and mix it up and bring a bit of extra freedom in? Instead of restraining myself to doing the same thing, maybe I'll take a different route to work. Maybe I'll get on a different bus. Something that will just shake it slightly, a little tiny step. And what it does is it makes you realize that the sky doesn't fall in when you do something different. And then you get that little bit of bravery to try something else. And it's these little micro steps that then take you where you need to be.
I think that's great advice. Good recommendation for all of us. Just look for the little moments and trust that they will begin to, like a little wave, become an ocean
Mm.
in our lives. Debi, if you had one message that you could share for a woman who is searching herself, looking for more meaning, more joy, more confidence in her life today, what would that be?
I think I would tell her that the best years of her life are still to come, and that the world needs her in her full truth, her full unapologetic self. That this is the time. This is the time to be yourself, to do the things you want to do, and to shine your light so that other people have the permission to do the same. Because just think of what a brilliant world we could create if we all rippled that type of energy out into it. So, yeah, the world needs you as
I,
yourself.
I agree totally with what you just said. I think that's absolutely beautiful. Anything else you would like to share with us today as we wrap up?
I think just I would just love people to really just embrace their total uniqueness and to give themselves permission to have a little bit more fun, to be a little bit more playful and to stop taking life so seriously because let's face it, none of us get out of it alive, right? So we might as well have fun while we're here.
Absolutely. Well, wow. This has been an incredible conversation. Debi, I do thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with us today. I love your sense or your approach to spirituality. It's refreshing to me, it's empowering, and it's exactly what so many of us need. For those of
Thank
you
you
who
for having
are,
me.
oh, you are so welcome. So thank you so much. Um, for those that are listening, if this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can connect with me on social media or join our community in Next Chapter Sisters, where we continue these kinds of conversations. Also, if you would like to learn more about Debi and the work that she does with her clients, please check out the links in the show notes. And always remember, this chapter of your life is yours to write. Keep living unscripted and unstoppable. Thank you all for joining us today.